think he's an authoritarian. I think he's fascist. I was deeply concerned about the things that he had announced that he had planned to do. This is beyond what I could have anticipated.
Krystal Ball debated her right-wing co-host Saagar Enjeti on their show Breaking Points about what's going on right now with Elon Musk and Doge as they're cutting programs in government agencies, going into the Treasury computers and doing who knows what. We're going to take a look at clips of this debate on Breaking Points between Krystal Ball and Saagar. I'm going to share my thoughts on this as well. This is a good one. Let's get into this together.
So as we just previewed with Jeff Stein, who originally broke this story, Elon Musk and his acolytes have effectively seized the Treasury Department, and they have control over all of the payments that go out from the federal government, along with seizing various other agencies that we'll get to in a moment. Let's go ahead and put Jeff's reporting here up on the screen from the Washington Post. He says, scoop, the highest-ranking Treasury official is expected to depart soon, and that has now happened, after a clash with Elon Musk allies over their demands for access to a sensitive internal government payment system. Musk allies wanted access to that system responsible for dispersing trillions in federal government payments annually as part of Doge. Treasury career staff saw the request, as he puts it, highly unusual. David LeBrick, viewed internally as consummate non-political civil servant, expected to exit after joining Treasury in 1989. Last week, he was acting Treasury Secretary, and the update there is now Musk has, in fact, and his apparatchiks, allies, whatever you want to call them, have been given access to that Treasury payment system. Now, just to explain to people how this works, all of the money, Social Security payments, Medicare payments, veterans benefits, all of the money that goes out from the federal government is dispersed by this system. Treasury officials have no authority to pick and choose which of these payments go out because, as we all know from, Constitution 101, Congress has the power of the purse. They appropriate the funds. And so this system is really just about executing on the payments that have already been congressionally authorized. So that's one of the reasons why this is such a big deal. The other reason why this is such a big deal is Elon Musk is not president of the United States. No one voted for this guy. He hasn't been confirmed for any sort of a Senate position. And now he and his acolytes have access to all of this incredibly sensitive information. Also, Elon Musk being the richest man in the world, having his own massive government contracts and conflicts of interest. Since he is not in a Senate confirmed position, he has not, mitigated any of those conflicts of interest. And we can put the next piece up on the screen. He at least claims that he is using this access to shut down payments that he does not like. Now, this is based on Mike Flynn, former, General Mike Flynn, who tweeted out, the Lutheran faith is using this money. They receive massive amounts of taxpayer dollars, with the indication being that they're using it for money laundering and human trafficking. Most of this money actually goes for things like, it's like Medicaid block grants. It goes for things like Head Start and Meals on Wheels and domestic violence, addiction services, those sorts of things. But whether or not you think that this organization is good, bad, indifferent, the bottom line is it's not up to Elon Musk or General Mike Flynn to decide whether or not these payments go out. So that's piece number one, is the Treasury. Piece number two, can put B3 up on the screen here. This is the Office of Personnel Management, basically the HR department for the entire federal government. Here you also have Musk aides locking out career workers from this Office of Personnel Management system. I'll go ahead and read this to you. They say aides to Elon Musk charged with running the U.S. government Human Resources Agency have locked career civil servants out of computer systems that contain the personal data of millions of federal employees. Those systems include a vast database called Enterprise Human Resources Integration, which contains dates of birth, social security numbers, appraisals, home addresses, pay grades, and length of service of government workers. Quote, we have no visibility into what they are doing with the computer data systems. That is creating great concern. There is no oversight. It creates real cybersecurity and hacking implications. Next piece, B4, the General Services Administration. Elon Musk's allies have infiltrated that agency as well. And they're looking for ways that sort of like, it's almost like the operations managers of the government, looking for ways to use White House credentials to access agency tech, potentially allowing them to remote into laptops, read emails, and more, sources say. I will pause for a minute before we get into what is the latest with regard to the USAID, which Musk has said he's been feeding into a wood chipper again. However you feel about that agency, that's up to Congress to decide whether or not we're going to eliminate various federal government agencies. Not a man who no one voted for and has no Senate confirmed position or power. So
I totally agree with Krystal Ball on this, 100%. Again, you can say, okay, I would have no problem if they went in and they said, we've looked at this organization. These are the problems that we see here, and we're going to have hearings about this. Or we're going to set up a task force, bipartisan, Republicans and Democrats equally distributed. And we're going to look at these organizations because we think that money isn't being properly spent here. That would be great. I think most Americans would be on board with that. But to just have this guy going in and cutting when we have no idea what's happening, and it happens to just be things seemingly that he dislikes for whatever reasons, we don't really know. We can speculate on that, but we don't really know what the reasons are. And the thing that's amazing to me about this is I'm seeing right-wingers now constantly on social media saying, yeah, it's great that Elon is cutting these things. Well, one, did you ever think anything about USAID before this? 2 weeks ago, I'm not in these right-wing circles all the time, but were right-wingers talking about USAID online and on their talk shows and all of that, saying, hey, this is something we really need to do something about. This is a bad organization and they're doing bad things. I doubt the vast majority of Americans had ever even heard of it. And number two, what Republicans never seem to think about is, what if the shoe were on the other foot? What if a Democrat president was in power and, people keep saying if they put Bill Gates or George Soros or whoever in there and just started going in and cutting things? What if they said, this would never happen, but this would be an example of something that right-wingers would care very much about? If they just started going in, if they said, no more money for Israel, we're cutting off, no more funding, we don't like what Israel's doing, done, gone, no more money for them. Or the Pentagon, we don't need close to 1,000 military bases around the country, around the world rather, cutting that in half, done right now, bases in XYZ country, they're closed. Come back immediately. They would be apoplectic. Their hair would be on fire. But now those things never happen. Democrats never seem to cut things that actually probably a majority of Americans, if they started making real defense cuts and not cutting things like, something that Republicans would claim as woke, that most Americans would probably support that. But Republicans just never seem to think about that or care, I guess, because I guess they just look at it as Democrats won't do that.
So Saagar, have been trying to grapple with what all this means, how to describe it. I think it is somewhere beyond a constitutional crisis. I think it is probably short of a coup, given that he doesn't, as far as I know, have control of the military. But that's the kind of territory we're getting into when you have one guy, richest man on the planet, not elected, no Senate confirmed position, who has seized control of the payment system, all of the federal government's sensitive data, is, deciding willy-nilly what payments should go out and what shouldn't, what agencies should exist and what shouldn't, and has effectively done this and seized this with this handful of 20-year-old kids with, as far as I can tell, very little pushback.
In principle, it's obviously insane. And I know that there are a lot of Doge fanboys and others who are out there, but this very much falls in the territory of their unilateralism. And in fact, he also, even my friend Ryan Grudusky made a good point. He's like, look, let's say there's a guy who made all of his money based in large part to some federal government policy. He's like, should we really give him reins over the federal government? This is where I really depart with a lot of my Silicon Valley tech right friends, even though in principle, I may not disagree with, getting rid of USAID or whatever. As long if it's gone through at least somewhat of a more democratic process, like it'd be better for me if the Secretary of State were doing it or the President, people who are elected, confirmed by the United States Senate. Their theory, as I understand it, is that they're trying to invite a lawsuit under the Impoundment Act that we had talked about previously. What they're trying to do is to stretch things as much as possible in terms of control before legal challenges can come and kick in. And under impoundment, trying to basically challenge what we talked about previously, that principle where the federal government is not required to stick with this. In that said, though, there is a decent amount of executive authority that the president can have in disbursement of payment. Specifically, again, as I understand it, is around NGOs, which because that comes down to like administrative judgment for disbursement of funds. So Congress might appropriate X millions of dollars for, like you were talking about, Meals on Wheels, like paying for the home. Then the administrators themselves can decide for whom to disperse the contract. So I was looking into the legal justification for that a bit, and that seems to be the ground that they're standing on top of trying to invite a challenge for impoundment to fast track it to the Supreme Court.
I mean, it is, as far as I can tell, brazenly illegal for this random dude with, no electoral mandate, no congressional mandate, no mandate whatsoever, to just go in and be like, I don't like this appropriation. We're not going to push this one out. I mean, this is, it's clear cut, not just separation of powers, but it'd be one thing if it was the president, if there was any transparency around this whatsoever. I mean, even that I think is blatantly unconstitutional. But he has effectively made Congress completely irrelevant. Like right now, it wouldn't matter, even if Democrats had won the House and the Senate, whatever, like Congress is now irrelevant. Even if whatever they pass, if Elon Musk can just come in and be like, no, I don't like that, not doing that. That is as like clearly unconstitutional as it could possibly get. And so, it to me, I think you would say probably, Saagar, that I was fairly alarmist in advance of Trump getting elected.
Yeah.
I think he's an authoritarian. I think he's fascist. I was deeply concerned about the things that he had announced that he had planned to do. This is beyond what I could have anticipated. And it's really the Elon Musk factor that I did not weigh in. Like, I did not anticipate that in week 2, we'd be talking about the richest man on the planet having effectively seized the government with basically no resistance. And so, I knew that there were basically no guardrails in place anymore. The Supreme Court has given Trump pretty blanket immunity for anything that's remotely connected to the job. Any sort of Republican opposition has been, by and large, pretty much vanquished. Any of the sort of career civil servants or the type of like the General Millies or the type of more establishment folks who are interested in maintaining the institutions, like they've all been excised. I knew all of this going in. I did not have the creativity to imagine the richest man on the planet seizing control of the government in week number 2. Could not see that one particularly coming. And so, the fact that there's been next to no institutional pushback, you have, the media is a mess. The Democratic Party is like, basically, why do they even exist at this point? I don't know where this goes, and I don't know how it ends. And even the idea, like, okay, they want to push for this impoundment control, legal fight or whatever. J.D. Vance came out and was like, yeah, and if we get a court ruling that we don't like, we'll be like Andrew Jackson, go ahead and enforce it with your army. So I don't have any confidence that they're going to abide by any legal rulings that would come down against them. They seem dead set, and Elon seems dead set on doing whatever Elon Musk wants to do. And the rest of us are irrelevant. We just get to stand by and watch. So, I'm sort of cheering for Trump and Elon to have some sort of falling out, and for Trump, who at least is duly elected president of the United States, to reassert some control over the government. So far, the indications in that direction are not great, given that Trump is out tweeting talking points seemingly directly from Elon Musk about South African land appropriation, and saying that he's gonna stop sending aid to South Africa because of this law that they passed in their own country.
So I think Krystal Ball again she puts this so well here that this is highly illegal. This was a guy who wasn't elected. Congress has no involvement in this. Elon Musk is just going in and seemingly doing whatever he wants to do. And I think she brings up a good point by talking about how Congress is irrelevant at this point. If they are able to completely circumvent Congress, I think that might be the time at which you would see some pushback from Republicans in Congress. And this is what I mean by that. Right now, Elon is cutting or investigating or whatever, things that the Republicans don't care about. But let's say they do something like, for example, you still have a lot of the Republicans in Congress who are supporting funding for Ukraine. And let's say that Republicans put in more funding for Ukraine and Elon Musk says, nah, I don't want that. I don't want it. And he cuts it. Or what if it's something that benefits oil companies? And Elon Musk says, no, I am an electric car maker. Or even if it would be something that would benefit some of the other car companies, which are Elon Musk's competitors. What if they try to do something, to get the car manufacturers to make more diesel cars or something like that? And Republicans are really on board with that because that would help the oil companies. And Elon says, no, I'm an electric car guy. I'm cutting that. I don't want that. There's a real possibility that you could, and that's something that I've thought from the beginning, where you have Donald Trump, who's going to be very pro-oil, and Elon Musk, who's going to be very pro-electric cars. Are they going to butt heads over that? That's where I think you might see some pushback from Republicans, is if they are completely taken out of this, if they're completely circumvented by Trump and Elon, and then they really serve no purpose, they might fight back at that point. I know that's a big if, but let me know what you think about all of this. Is there going to be any way for Democrats in Congress or even in Republicans in Congress, if they get fed up, or the courts, to stop what Elon Musk is doing? Do you agree with Krystal Ball here that this is just highly illegal? And I feel the same way. Let me know in the comments what you think. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I'm Chris on Culture, and I will see you in the next video.